Imagine being in your own house and still feeling like you have to breathe quietly. Like every decision you make is already being judged before you even make it. Like the people who are supposed to understand you are somehow the people you have to explain yourself to the most. If that sounds familiar, you already know what this video is about. Not every parent is like this, but a lot of people know exactly what it feels like to live under the kind of pressure that does not just control your life, it shrinks it. And the weirdest part is this: strict parents usually do not think they are hurting you. They think they are protecting you. They think they are preparing you. They think they are doing the right thing. That is what makes this so complicated, because from the outside, it can look like love. Inside the house, it can feel like fear. And if you have ever had to live with strict or overprotective parents, you already know the pattern. You want to do something new. They get uncomfortable. You want to choose something different. They panic. You want to explain yourself. They shut it down. And suddenly, the conversation is no longer about your future. It becomes about their fear. That fear usually has a name: society. What will people say? That one sentence has controlled more lives than most people realize. It is not always the child that parents are worried about. A lot of the time, they are worried about the neighborhood, the relatives, the family reputation, the random uncle who has an opinion about everything, and the invisible crowd that somehow gets a vote in your life. You try to choose your own path, and they hear rebellion. You try to build your own identity, and they hear embarrassment. You try to become someone, and they worry about how it will look. That is why so many parents criticize the moment you try to do something unusual, not because they hate you, because they are terrified of being judged through you. And if you have ever felt like you were being controlled for no reason, that might be the reason. Not a good reason, but a real one. Now here is where things get more dangerous. Because fear does not stay still. Fear turns into control. Control turns into overprotection. And overprotection, if it goes on long enough, does something brutal. It stops a child from growing internally, not physically, internally. It teaches you that the world is dangerous, that people are dangerous, that failure is dangerous, that the opposite gender is dangerous, that going outside is dangerous, that speaking up is dangerous, that trying something new is dangerous. And when you grow up hearing that often enough, you stop becoming brave. You become cautious to the point of paralysis. You start fearing things that should be normal. You start doubting yourself before anyone else even speaks. You start needing permission for everything. That is not maturity. That is emotional damage disguised as protection. Research on parent-child communication keeps pointing toward the same problem. When communication is poor, kids feel isolated, misunderstood, and emotionally unsafe, while more open, validating communication is linked with better coping and better mental health. The difference is not just what parents say. It is whether children feel heard at all. And that matters because a child who is never allowed to think freely does not become more obedient in a healthy way. They become dependent. They become timid. They become the kind of adult who can technically survive, but cannot fully choose. Think about that. You know that person who freezes when they have to make even a simple decision? That does not appear overnight. It is built, slowly, at home, with repeated messages that sound small in the moment. Don't do that. Don't talk to that person. Don't go there. Don't ask why. Don't question me. Don't make trouble. At some point, the child stops asking. Not because they understand, because they learn that asking costs too much. And here is the part nobody likes to say out loud. Some parents are not actually teaching discipline. They are teaching fear. Now, to be fair, not all of this comes from cruelty. A lot of parents are carrying old worlds inside them. They grew up with different rules, different expectations, different ideas of success, different ideas of respect, different ideas of what a good child looks like. And this is where the generation gap becomes a real problem. Your parents are often thinking with an old map. You are living in a new world. They were raised in a world where obedience often meant safety. You are growing up in a world where independence often means survival. They think controlling every move is love. You know, it can feel like a cage. That conflict is why so many homes feel tense, even when nobody is screaming. The disagreement is not only about rules, it is about reality. Parents often believe the old culture is still the best culture. The old methods are still the safest methods. The old career path is still the best career path. The old idea of respect is still the only idea of respect. But the world changed. Fast. And not every parent changed with it. That is why sometimes they sound confident about things they barely understand. Not because they are stupid, Because they are outdated. And if that sounds harsh, think about the number of adults who still treat modern careers, digital life, or new opportunities like suspicious behavior instead of normal evolution. You have probably noticed this too. You learn something new. They dismiss it. You want to try something different. They mock it. You bring up a modern path. They compare it to the old one. And if they do not understand it, they often label it as risky, childish, lazy, or pointless. That is how a young person ends up feeling stupid for simply being modern. But the real problem is even deeper. Some parents are not just strict. They are carrying their own unfinished pain into your life. They did not get the life they wanted. They did not become the person they imagined. They sacrificed. They struggled. They compromised. And now they look at you and quietly think, this is my second chance. That is where the pressure gets toxic. Because suddenly, your life stops being your life. It becomes a project, a return on investment, a future asset, a social proof machine, a way to prove that their suffering meant something. And this is where parenting turns into control. Not because they do not love you, because they are trying to use your life to repair theirs. That is an ugly truth, but it explains a lot. Why some parents treat success like the only form of worth. Why some parents act like a bad grade is a character flaw. Why some parents feel personally attacked when you choose a path they did not approve. Why some parents carry every sacrifice they made like a bill you now owe them back. You hear it all the time. We gave up so much for you. We did everything for your future. We stayed hungry so you could study. We put all our money into you. And sometimes those sacrifices are real. That is what makes it so painful. Because the sacrifice is genuine, but the emotional debt it creates can become poisonous. A child is not a retirement plan. A child is not a trophy. A child is not a backup investment that must pay dividends later. A child is a person. And the moment a parent forgets that, the entire relationship starts deforming. You can see where this kind of pressure can lead when it becomes extreme. There are cases where children under immense pressure create fake versions of their lives just to survive at home. They lie. They hide. They perform. They build a second self in secret. Not because they are evil, because honesty felt too dangerous. That is what happens when the truth has too much punishment attached to it. The child does not become freer. They become better at hiding. And once hiding becomes the norm, the damage spreads everywhere. Trust breaks. Respect turns fake. Love turns conditional. And the house starts running on fear, not connection. There are also cases from other countries where the pressure cooker became so intense that the family system collapsed completely. In some stories, the outside world saw a perfect family. Inside, it was control, silence, and fear. And when the inside gets ignored for too long, the outside eventually cracks. That is the dark lesson. When you build a home on control instead of understanding, the damage does not stay hidden forever. It grows, sometimes quietly, sometimes dramatically, sometimes tragically. And even when it does not explode, it still leaves marks. Anxiety, low self-worth, a double life, fear of saying no, fear of disappointing people, fear of choosing your own future, fear of being seen. Research on parenting styles keeps showing the same pattern. When parents are warm, firm, and actually explain things, children usually do better. When parents are rigid, punishing, or emotionally unavailable, kids tend to struggle more with self-confidence and communication. So what do you do if this is your life? You do not fix it by starting a war in the kitchen. You do not fix it by screaming louder. You do not fix it by trying to win every argument. That is how you get exhausted. What you need is something much harder. You need calm. You need competence. You need boundaries. And you need a spine. Not a rude one, a stable one. If your parents will not listen to emotion, then show responsibility. If they do not trust words, let your actions build proof. If they panic at every new idea, do not react like a child. Stay grounded. Use simple language. Use I statements. I feel suffocated when everything gets decided for me. I need space to learn this myself. I can hear your concern, but I need you to let me try. That will not magically fix everyone. Some parents will still resist. Some will still misunderstand you. Some will still choose control over conversation. But you have to start building a version of yourself that can survive the pressure without breaking. Because the real goal is not just to escape bad parenting. It is to stop becoming the same kind of parent later. That is the real reveal here. A lot of strict parenting is not intelligence. It is inherited fear. Fear from society, fear from scarcity, fear from old culture, fear from past failure, fear from unfinished dreams, fear disguised as love. And if you do not understand that, you may spend your whole life thinking your parents are just trying to ruin you. Sometimes they are not trying to ruin you. They are repeating what ruined them. That does not make the damage acceptable. It just makes the cycle visible. And once you can see the cycle, you can break it. That is the task. Not by becoming cold, by becoming clear. Not by becoming rebellious for the sake of rebellion. By becoming independent on purpose. By learning your own skills. By managing your own life. By becoming so capable that nobody can keep calling you a child forever. Because one day, you will either repeat the same pattern with your own kids, or you will be the person who stops it. You will choose connection before correction. You will choose listening before punishment. You will choose guidance instead of control. And that might be the most important thing you ever do, not just for yourself, for the next generation too. And that's it for today. If this video gave you something to think about, then it was worth making. Keep questioning, keep learning, and most importantly, keep growing. I'll see you in the next one.